Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here today because today is going to be an interesting one. Today, we're going to look into identity and governance, privacy, and compliance as well. So I hope you guys are excited as I am. Wherever you are, I'm hoping you are enjoying the weekend. And for you, taking your time to join us is a privilege on our behalf. So we're not going to disappoint you. We have a very wonderful um, speaker for today. So it's a good time and it's good that you've actually joined this session. So without any further ado, let me just introduce you our speaker for today. Our speaker for today is going to be Shei. Shei is a technology executive with hats worn as a developer. He is the kind of guy who is into cloud massively. So he's a technologist. And aside from that, he currently works as a site reliable engineer and he has multiple certifications across multiple IT domains. So it's massive in terms of the experience that he has, both on-prem and also in the cloud as well. He's a subject matter expert in cloud technologies, native cloud engineering, and technology consultant as a managed service provider to SMEs. Prior to his current role, Shea served in a senior management role managing teams and cross-functional initiatives within technology space. Aside work, Shea enjoys learning and sharing his knowledge as he's going to do today, his knowledge in cloud technologies and also digital transformation. So without any further ado, Shea, welcome to this program.
Yes. Thank you for the introduction, Kofi. It's a pleasure to be here today. Good afternoon to the listeners and those that have joined in on this session. I really do hope that you would find this productive and informative towards your journey on being a cloud professional. I must apologize that my video is not on as like Kofi, and that's because I'm currently not in a suitable place where I would normally have loved to have presented this from. So I would please crave your indulgence to have my video off for this session. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely understandable. So for the audience, if you're new to this session, please do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we do have a meetup group. So we encourage that you join the meetup group as well, because we are going to bring more of these type of Azure sessions. So it's a very good time for you to take the opportunity to join both our YouTube channel by subscribing and also join our community on the meetup as well. I'll share the link in the chat window if you do not have the link already. So Shay, what do you have in store for us today?
Yes. So basically, as you did mention earlier, the focus of today's session is going to be primarily on security, compliance, and identity within Azure, as it were. The focus basically is to drive understanding of all of the participants on how governance is like and how you're able to manage identity and privacy for your users and within any corporate environment. Kofi, do I still have you here? It appears that I may have lost you for some seconds.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, what I was saying is that now that many companies are moving to the cloud, because let's say the COVID have actually accelerated the movement of or migration of services into the cloud, and identity governance, privacy, and compliance become a key element to securing these sort of resources. So we're definitely looking forward to this session.
Yes, thank you, Kofi. So, a bit of a background. I know that Kofi has done that, so I will probably not just take much time on that. This is a bit of what I have within the cloud space. Certified across multiple cloud domains, Google, Azure, and AWS. And I currently work as a site reliability engineer from Nigeria while serving global companies. As Kofi did rightly mention as well earlier, one of the primary things that COVID-19 has done to the world is to accelerate the adoption of cloud technology, as it were. However, the flip side to this adoption is that security risk has greatly improved, has greatly increased, I beg your pardon, and users. Key area within the cloud space, cloud security, and ensuring that both the data that organizations own, their users and their machines are fully kept safe away from attacks and any other form of security breaches, as it were. As it has been normally said, you can never be too fully secured, and as such, this what we'll go over this afternoon is just what Azure has in its arsenal, has solutions with which you can manage both the security of users and their machines and the data, the identity of users and an organization as a whole, and most importantly, being able to drive compliance and governance in any corporate structure that you may find yourself where Azure is being used. So for the certification exam, for those who are looking to write a certain exam in a little while, this is the latest of how Microsoft has divided these segments. We have the concept on security and compliance taking about like 10%, while the capabilities of the identity and access management solutions that Azure offers to both you as an administrator and to organizations will take about like 30%. And the capabilities of the security solution, another 30 to 35%, and the compliance solutions about another 30%. From this weight division, this points to one thing, which is the fact that Microsoft, as it were, wants you as an administrator to be able to understand the different tools that they have, and that's why they have assigned so much weight to all of these three segments. They want you to be able to understand the tools that they have and the solutions with which you can drive compliance, governance, and access and identity management within any entity that you may find yourself. So I'll start by saying, Kofi, is it okay to go ahead? Can you confirm that I'm still audible?
It is, yeah, it's audible, loud and clear. So you're good to go. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Um, I'll just take this into. Yes, so as I was saying, we have the zero trust methodology in Azure. And this is so because for everything and for every identity that you add within a cloud environment, be it Azure or any other cloud provider, a zero trust methodology and approach comes first, which is the fact that you do not, they call it the principle of least privilege. Maybe that's what some people may have been used to. But for everybody or any identity or any machine that you want to add to your environment, you do not trust anything first. You have to verify that entity it is you are adding, be it device, be it users, be it an application, be it a data or the infrastructure as well, is compromised. So you have to verify that this is actually safe for you to add before you actually add it to your tenant. And this is largely because any breach into your cloud infrastructure might lead to a much more massive breach that could cost your organization a lot of money. And in your role as an administrator, one of the core things on is to ensure that devices and identities that you have within your tenant and your tenant as an entirety is safe 100%. So Microsoft has a different approach to this, which is the CIA model, which is that all things concerning customer information, password and financial data is to be kept safe, and it is considered confidential. Supposed to be a very high level of integrity. And integrity means that bring the accurate data and the right messages in the event of an audit or in the event of apologies, I'm trying to pick the right word now, or more like an introspection into what data that you are keeping. You have to ensure the integrity of the data that you have as an asset in an organization, as this will help you at any point in time when it is you're trying to investigate. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Whenever it is you want to carry out any investigation, or if for any reason you have to do an audit. And also, there's availability for those who need your data, because the honest truth is, whatever data it is you have within your organization cannot be accessed by everybody. There has to be right time to identities, as we will see in the course of today's discussion. Kofi.
Ishi, I'm here.
Yes, to chip in that if people have questions at any point in time, can please drop their questions in the chat box, and it is okay to stop me to take questions and respond to them, so that we don't have a situation where we probably lose someone at some point during the presentation,
Yeah.
and for some reason they're unable to catch up with the entire picture of what is being presented.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yes.
guys, if you have any questions, make sure you put that question in the chat window, and I will pass that across to Shay.
Yes, thank you again. So, across the cloud platform Azure, there's a shared responsibility. I would expect you will probably not have an understanding of this. What it means is the fact that you're using cloud provider for solution does not mean that they entirely bear the responsibility for managing and ensuring that whatever data you have on that platform is kept safe. It is a shared responsibility model where the platform owners, Microsoft in this instance, has their responsibilities, and you as an end user or as an administrator has a responsibility as well. As it is seen here, all the boxes labeled white are the things that Microsoft is responsible for 100%, while the other areas marked in blue are the areas where you as a customer or as an administrator is responsible for the success of the use of your cloud infrastructure. So I will just take a couple of them, which is for your information and data. You are fully responsible for all of your information and data across whether it's a SaaS platform or a platform as a service or an infrastructure that you have, or maybe it is an on-premise, the responsibility is always yours. On places like identity and directory infrastructure, applications and network controls, which is like a bit of a focus on the things that we'll speak about in the later part of our session. There are at some point shared responsibilities between you and Microsoft, if it is on a SaaS or a PaaS platform, and if it is an infrastructure as a service or an on-premise solution, you as a customer or as an administrator, you are fully responsible for this. I will start with this, which is across cloud platforms, data identities are supposed to be encrypted. So whatever data it is you have, either in transit, which is as you get it from your end users, who are the customers that can be anywhere across the world as they interact with whatever platform it is you have on the cloud, and at any point, their data is kept on servers in cloud, it is expected to be encrypted, and this is to ensure that you don't give away easy access for intruders to be able to read or access this data. And under encryption, Azure offers two types of encryption, which is symmetric and asymmetric. And the symmetric type is where you have just one key to be able to either encrypt and decrypt a data, as you would have. I think JWT runs that model for people who are developers here, while the asymmetric model appears to be the most popular in the industry, where you have a public key that is saved on your cloud machine and a private key that you would have as an administrator, with which, whenever it is you need to decrypt the data that you have stored on cloud, you will need to pass in your private key to be able to access that data on cloud. And the other part to this is hashing, which is used to save passwords. Passwords are the things with which you can convert your regular password. So when you log on to site and then they tell you, oh, you should provide a secure password, and you enter password 123, be rest assured that that password, as much as it is just password 123 that you have typed in, is not going to be what will be directly saved on their machines. As an administrator, they expect that you hash secure keys like this to ensure that it reduces the risk of any brute force attack on your password table. Across the cloud space generally, it's been identified that there are common types of identity attacks, which can either be password based, which can either be password based. This particularly has given rise to why we need things like hashing. Aside this, there is aside this, there is also phishing, which is sending malicious links to your users and expecting them to click that in the hopes that they will be able to access information. As an example, these are like the poor passwords that most people tend to use. So people would use their birth month and their birth year. Some people would use QWERTY 123. Some people will use the name of their company and then the year that they joined. And these things have been identified as very, very poor choices of password to use to secure your systems. And it is important that as an administrator or as a user that is coming into the Azure environment, you come in with a mindset of being able to use passwords that are very secure to keep identities and data that you may have very safe.
Yeah, Shay, I got a question.
Yes, please.
So I got a question from Chris. He just want to know how best could you distribute a symmetric key in theory?
Okay, so a symmetric key in theory, for you to be able to keep that, is first by limiting the number of people that have access to that symmetric key. That is the very first way. The lesser the number of people that have access to this key, the lesser the surface attack or the possibility of of anybody gaining access to your data via that particular key. With that done, the other option is to be very mindful of where you store your keys. So you see people who maybe for some reasons just keep their keys on a flash drive, and it is that same flash drive that they would give a Sunday who needs to copy movies from their system, and you begin to expose yourself to a lot of risk. And Azure in itself offers options to be able to store keys, as we would see in the later part of our discussion today. But as an administrator and as a user, if you find yourself working with on-premise machines and not necessarily resources in cloud, um, minimizing who has access to the key and where it is saved are the major particular ways to reduce the risk of losing access or giving an unfettered access to your data or your resources via the poor handling of that key. But with Azure offers an option with which you can manage keys and use it to securely access your applications, your data, or your devices in cloud. I hope that answers your question, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes. So, under identity, identity in Azure is separated into four major areas, which is identity can be a user, which is someone like me or someone like you as a listener on this call. We have applications that are running full SaaS apps that are running in cloud. They also can have their own identity, and it is advised to give them to give them their own identity, so you can know who accesses what machine at what point in time. Or it can be a device, which is either your phone, your laptop, your tablet, or it can be other, in a bid to improve collaboration between the organization and maybe other partners that you work with. Microsoft has created the option for them to be signed identities on your tenant, such that with this they can easily get to securely access information and data on your cloud platform. This identity that you would give to them is something that can be managed to the minutest details, which comes to maybe time or mode of access on machines or locations where that data can even be accessed from. And these are one of the many possibilities that Azure presents to us as administrators and as users of the platform. So I will start with identity management. So basically, for identity management in Azure, Azure has given to us as administrators the Azure Active Directory to be able to manage any identity whatsoever that we may want to manage in cloud. Quite a number of people who are maybe have worked in the IT space, maybe as a systems administrator or as an IT support, might find themselves familiar with the term Active Directory. But I must sound this note of warning that the Active Directory on premise, which you're probably used to, is not the same as your Azure Active Directory. Technically, yes, they both do the same thing, but the way they are managed and the way with which you use it to manage access to your platform across devices across your organization as a whole is a bit different. So you might need to pay a bit of an extra attention here. With your Azure Active Directory, it mostly comes with you can either buy it with your Dynamics account or your Office 360 or your Microsoft 365 account. And with this, you can easily drive the management of identities, which we have, which has been divided into four major areas, which is a user, like as I did mention, someone like myself or yourself, a device which can either be a mobile device, a laptop that is issued to someone in your office, or servers or printers as it may be. And then there is what we call a service principal. And service principal is the identity that you will give to applications that you have hosted in cloud, or maybe on-premise applications that you're trying to have access data or serve your users. For you to have a full identity that can be managed and tracked, there's what is called the service principal. And then the last thing is the managed identity, which is more or less like a form of a service principal. And basically, that is just used to identify resources that help you in supporting authentication to the Azure AD tenant that you have in cloud. The other part to this, as I did mention, or as I did mention earlier, is external identities that you issue out to collaborators who are not part of the organizations, but for some reason need to access information or data within your tenant. We have the B2B collaboration, which is what you would use to share applications with external resources. So maybe you have applications that are hosted on an Azure tenant, and you need to be able to share access to this particular application to people. You can have the B2B collaboration for that. And or you can create an identity for these people. In the event that they don't have a Microsoft account, they will be required to create one for them to be able to access that information within your Azure within the Azure tenant. And the other part to this is the B2C, which is simply like business to consumer, which is the identity management solution for applications that end users now have to use. So take note of the difference, which is the B2B collaboration is between you and other organizations that you get to work with, while the B2C is primarily for end users. And in a bid to make the identity that you issue out to be more secure, there is what we call the multi-factor authentication. And the multi-factor authentication is takes security just beyond a password that you type in. So, in addition to the password that has been typed in addition to the password that has been typed in, you are required to also provide an information, which is either something that you know, or a device that you have, or something that you are. So, for example, something that you know will be what is the street that you grew up in, or what is your mother's maiden name. An example of something that you have is maybe having a 2FA app, maybe a Microsoft Authenticator is an example of the 2FA app, or maybe Google Key, I think. And then there is another application called OTI on your phone. With those apps, you can generate a secure 2FA code to validate an identity. And then the last is something that you are, which is being able to identify yourself by a particular information that you have provided. So maybe a secure access code sent to your phone, the SMS, and the likes. So this simply just breaks that down a bit further to identify that example of passwords are either the 1234s, the QWERTY, the year you joined an organization, and the name of the organization. And it becomes a bit more better if you're able to add or add an SMS option or a voice option to authenticate yourself to your account. And even becomes a lot more better if you have Microsoft Authenticator, or a software token OTP, like OTI and the like, so an hardware token OTP, We're not exactly familiar with that, but if you have a bank token, maybe a GTB token, that's an example of an hardware token with which you would authenticate to your account. And then the best on the Microsoft platform is to have the passwordless options. So they have the Windows Hello, which rides on biometrics, fingerprints, and a retina scanner. If you bought a Microsoft PC or a Windows PC, I beg your pardon, in the last 2 or 3 years, you will notice that this is becoming increasingly an option for you to be able to log in. As much as it appears to be very easy, these are things that cannot change. Your fingerprint is unique to just you alone, and your retina is most likely very unique to you alone. And with this, it offers you the best form of access to manage identities. So in addition to creating an identity on the Azure AD platform, it is important that you trigger the multi-factor authentication option for them, such that they would not just use their password alone, but they would leverage either of the three options that we have provided here, something that they know or something that they have or something that they are, to be able to complete their login access. Another part to this is a conditional access to your Azure tenant, which is you would have resources that are segmented into different categories. To say, I have X data that can only be accessed by a group, or I have X data or X tenant, I beg your pardon, that can only be accessed from a certain location, or they're leveraging the AI, the artificial intelligence capabilities of Azure to be able to determine if the region that anybody is signing in from to be able to access a particular information on your Azure tenant is considered a very high risk area. And based on your conditional access that is set on every identity, you can either block an access to a certain data, or you can grant access to it. As a senior, we're saying that Azure, check the device, check a user location, check the particular application where someone is logging in from, and check, based on your AI capabilities, the real-time risk of this identity that is trying to access this information. If you require an MFA, which is a multi-factor authenticator, it means that that person has to provide that second factor authenticator before they're able to access the application or the data. If they're unable to provide it, you can restrict access to it. Or if based on these four signals, you can say that if for any reason Azure detects a risk that does not match the parameter that you have provided, simply block this access and the access is blocked. Or you may say, if it matches one or two of these signals that I have set on the platform, allow access to it. But the best option is, as we've always said, request for an MFA and then set conditional access that will still further go beyond just an MFA to ensure that you're granting the right identity access to your apps and your data. So within the governance space for the Azure identity, you have a life cycle of an identity, which is being able to update access rights and grant right authorizations to the right people. So this simply just loops through a life cycle within an organization to say that, oh, you have a new employee that has just joined you on your very first job, and for some reason maybe joining as customer service, and this person has moved up the cadre with the promotion, and then they begin to need to access much more information. The moment they move, you need to manage that life cycle, and if at the point of retirement they are leaving, you need to be able to transfer them to the point where they literally have no access to your tenant again. This literally spans across regular access reviews of these identities to be able to see who has access to what information at what point. And these are things that you can easily set on Azure, on your Azure Active Directory. In addition to this, you can also manage the entitlement that has been given to a particular identity. This will span the workflows that has been set to them, how long this access is supposed to last for, and ensuring that they comply with whatever legal and compliance values that is required of them before they can easily access this information. In addition to that, on the Azure Active Directory platform as well, you're able to easily manage identity with an option called privileged identity management. With this, you are able to also control access to the data that you have stored or the apps that you have within your tenant. And, it can just be, as option one has said, just in time. And then what that just in time option means is that the access that you're providing to your users is just for that particular time that they need it. So we have said we have a meetup for 3 o'clock today, and if we've said that we only want to grant share access to our application at 3 p.m., it means that within that window period, if I come, I'm able to access that data. However, if that time or limit lapses, or it's been said that I can only access this information just once, the moment I access it once, that is the end of it. You're able to get access to that particular information. And it is all of this that privileged identity management helps us manage. So you can tie it to a particular time. You can tie it to the number of times that data can be accessed. You can tie it to even a second level approval to say that for this person to be able to access an information, they need maybe an approval from their line manager, or they need an approval from a supervisor before that information is accessible. And the beautiful thing with Azure is all of this access history, you can simply audit them at any single point in time. So I can say I have granted Kofi access to a particular app or a data for 10 p.m. and I want to audit if truly Kofi did access that information at that particular point in time, and to see what other areas they won't try to venture into. In addition to this as well, we have the Azure Identity Protection, which basically just helps helps an organization and you as an administrator to easily detect risk and remediate this risk in the event of any wrong exposure. You're able to categorize your risk into different key areas, which can be either below, medium, or high. And then with this, you can easily get a full-time report of who the risky users are within your organization, where what risky detections you have noticed, and the sign-in options as well, which ones have been seen to be risky. And with this, you can simply form a knowledge base on who to advise. So if I see a Kofi that's been tagged as a risky user on my organization's tenant, I can simply just say that, oh, Kofi, your account has been flagged. You've been accessing from a particular location that is considered to be posing a risk to our tenant, or posing high risk to our data or applications in-house. And we need to be able to add maybe another level of MFA, or we need to add an access review, or a privileged identity management plan on his account, for us to be able to easily manage his access to our data and to prevent any risk to any information that we may have saved in the cloud. So,
Shay, before you move on, I have another question that just came in.
yes, please.
It's about the MFA.
Okay.
Chris just want to know, does Azure AD have the following form of MFA at the moment? So the form he's after is something, somewhere you are, or something you do.
Yes.
So did he get a question?
No, I'm not sure I got that.
Yeah, so he want to know whether with the MFA, you see, with the MFA, you mentioned that it will give you the extra level of identity by saying something you are, something you know, or something you have. So he's taking it to the next level, but by saying that, can it go to these other parameters by saying, okay, somewhere you are, so the location, or something you do, so probably something that probably
Oh,
you
okay. So, thank you for that, Kofi and Chris. So, with MFA, you're unable to set that. With access review and PIM, which is a privileged information access, privileged information identity management access, you're able to manage these options. These are the options, as I did highlight earlier, that is able to manage an identity based on where it is they are signing in from. So after an MFA has been set, which is providing initially a password and then maybe a soft access token, you can then set a conditional access to say that if Share has rightly provided the right password, and the MFA token is right, but is logging in from Iraq, whereas it's supposed to be logging in from Nigeria, please do not grant him an access. I will be restricted. I will not be granted access to any data or application within the tenant. And that is simply because it has been set by the conditional access to say that anybody that is logging in into this tenant from Iraq, please do not grant them an access. You can even narrow it down to a city or by a geofencing to say, oh, within X radius of this particular area, if anybody is trying to gain in an access from that location, or if anybody is not logging in from our HQ office that is in Victoria Island in Lagos, please do not grant them an access. This is what conditional access will help you set, not MFA. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for that. And another thing, there seems to be some background noise. So if you can control that, if that's a possibility.
I apologize for that. I will do that. So, in continuation, under the security capabilities of Azure, we have a couple of tools that Azure has set that would help us to manage how identities are able to access platforms better or in a much more secure way. And the very first thing that can be set for apps or machines is starting with the Azure Network Security Group. With an NSG, you can simply deny traffic from specific IP addresses or from IP addresses that do not match what it is you have set, to say that if an IP address does not match 0.0.0 or 10.0.10.198, please do not grant them access. You can specify the particular port with which they can also access, or the action that can even be taken within your network. This is what the Azure Network Security Groups help us do. With the DDoS protection, it can protect your tenant, your user, and your resources in cloud from any what is it called, denial of service, DDoS attack, as it may be. This is split across two tiers. The basic option is free, which comes with almost every Azure tenant, but there is a limit to the number of attacks your basic level Azure DDoS can protect you from. The standard, however, is able to protect you. The standard is, however, able to go a scale higher than the basic and protect you from further attacks via DDoS. And the goal of the DDoS attacks basically is to send in a whole lot of traffic against your resources and keep them down to ensure that regular users who are supposed to access your traffic or to access your resources are unable to do so. And then the next thing to this is the Azure Firewall. Which simply just helps you to be able to protect access to machines that you have stored in cloud. So when people want to, when machines want to access your resources in cloud, you simply can just set up a firewall to protect this access. In addition to this also is the Azure Bastion option, which is more or less like a jump host, which means that for you to be able to access a server, we typically just have this for servers where access to servers are only granted from one host. And that host is a machine on its own that users or as an administrator, you have to first log into before you log in and access your servers that are stored in cloud. This you would literally pass mostly over, and any other access servers from host that is not set to be a jump host or a bastion host as it is called in Azure will not be granted access to it. And then for your users, you could also have the web application firewall. With the firewall, what it helps you to do is to improve how Azure is able to detect attacks on the resources that you have provisioned on the cloud. So with your WAF policy, you're able to know and put together a better response to any security threats that your tenants may encounter. And on the Azure AD tenant, Microsoft provides us with a Microsoft Secure Score, which is after you have set all of these security options. Your Microsoft Security Score will give you an overview of how secure your tenant is as a whole. So when you open your Microsoft Secure dashboard, you can see to say that 16.75% is the score that you have been given, and your secure score would also give you recommendations for how you can improve the security for your tenant and your data stored in cloud. In addition to the Microsoft Secure Score, there is also the Microsoft Sentinel. And what the Sentinel does is basically to leverage AI to be able to investigate and remediate any threats against your tenant or against any data or machine that you have stored on the cloud. With the Azure Sentinel, it provides you with a better landscape or overview for you to be able to access all of the data that users and devices have on your machines. You can collect them in one place. You can do an investigation internally to see where threats or risk may lie within your tenant and then being able to remediate them. And lastly on this is Microsoft Intune. So Intune is a security option that you can install on either mobile devices or laptops as it may. And in this era of working from home, it is one of the best options that you as an administrator can leverage for your organization, such that you can enroll devices on MDM to manage what it is they can't see, what they can see, and also take a total score of how secure that device is. And for devices that you consider insecure, you can easily just block them away from accessing your resources. For the mobile application management, which is the MAM, this is simply for mobile devices. So for devices for people who have to access sensitive data on their mobile devices, you can have the MAM installed on these devices to ensure that with this, they can manage any risk and protect your company data, even as much as wiping that device in the event of a loss of such devices or in the event of that person leaving your organization. The last part to this, how to drive compliance within the organization when using Azure. You can leverage what is known as the 365 Compliance Center, as it were, to be able to see how your organization is compliant with your identity management and access policies. With your compliance manager, you can set controls, you can have templates, and you can define improvement actions that your tenant as a whole will work on and leverage for you to be able to know where you stand as an organization. And overall, it would give you a score, and that score, as it were, will define your posture as an organization to say how much of a risk your organization is at, or how less of a risk, or how better secure your organization is. I would just mention that in addition to this as well, we have what we call Resource Manager logs, which is a security option that you can give to your apps and your data in the cloud. And you can set 3 options for that. And the options that are an A-lock level, a cannot delete level, and a read-only level. And what this will help you to do basically is to ensure that the data that you have stored with Azure Resource Manager lock, they simply call it ARM in case you are within Azure professionals and they are mentioning this. With ARM, what you're able to do easily is to put a lock on certain resources. It can be a machine, it can be data, to say that nobody should be able to delete X resources from your tenant. And at any point in time, what you actually want is that anybody that comes to access an information cannot even make an edit. What they should just be able to do is to be able to read that particular resource alone. Azure Blueprint goes a step further than Azure Resource Manager by giving you a template that you can reuse across Azure as a whole. So if you have a particular template for policy or compliance that you have defined, you can simply just transfer that into a permanent template called an Azure Blueprint that you can use to build or continuously create environments within your tenant. And that way, regardless of what happens, maybe a data loss or a shutdown of your tenant at any point in time, with your blueprint, you can simply be back up at any point in time. And as a matter of fact, if the organization is also expanding, so say you work for a global organization that is looking to spread our tentacles beyond the country where you are, for example, you're in Nigeria and your organization is beginning to spread to Ghana, all you just have to do with Azure Blueprint is take that template, go to the tenant that you have created for Azure or your organization, maybe Contoso Ghana, and put in your blueprint, and that same blueprint would continuously apply to any other employee that you may have within your Ghana entity. And lastly to this is the Azure policy, which is a document with which you can evaluate your compliance circle to see who is meeting your compliance, who is compliant with your, or who is not meeting them. And with a lot of these resources, you're able to easily manage identities to your tenant in cloud. I would say that this topic is very huge, and this short talk may not have covered it in much details as it were, but I really hope that you were able to learn a thing or two from this session. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody may have at this point in time. Thank you.
Wow, that's a wonderful session. I know time did not allow us, and based on the way you're speaking, you are really in your zone. You can see that you were flowing like crazy. So, Shay, thank you very much for such a wonderful session. I mean, if you guys have any questions, kindly put a question in the chat window, and we do have just about 3 minutes, so Shay can actually answer those questions, please. So no questions so far. I'll go one question. With your slide, it's well designed. Is it something that you share? I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I'm just trying to see if any of you have any questions. Just throw it out there, and I'll share that with Shay. Well, it looks like there's no other question coming up, Shay. So we have to call it a day. But I think it would be great for you to probably come up with another session that you can obviously educate us more in regards to these services. So once again, thank you everyone for joining this session, and we hope to see you for next time. I mean, what we normally do is when the event is coming, we'll definitely post it out there. So keep your eye out. Make sure you subscribe to our social media handles so that you'll be well informed about the next coming event. So once again, thank you everyone for joining this session. And thank you,
Yes.
Shay.
Thank you, Kofi. Thank you, everybody that joined the session. As you may see, I have, in the event of any question, like Kofi did mention, it's Azure Security, Identity Access Management is quite a lot. But if you do go back to have some reading in your private space and you feel you have questions that you may have, please do not hesitate to reach out to our community. We have our social media handles, Azure Nigeria on Twitter. It's the same as well on LinkedIn as well. Anybody within our community would be happy to assist you and provide you with responses. In case you would like to speak to me privately, you can reach me via my email that is currently displayed, and either via my Twitter handle as well. I'm always happy to be of help. I wish you again the very best. Thank you again for being a part of this week's session. We look forward to having you on subsequent sessions that we'll have. And thank you as well, Kofi.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of the day. All right, bye for now.